This week I set out to see what moths come to my garden. I thought it would be simple, but what I didn't expect was 3 nights of late nights, trial and error, and some incredible surprises. At night time, the garden doesn't just go quiet, it changes into something magical, and all kinds of animals arrive. But the ones I want to focus on this week are moths. Moths don't get much attention, like butterflies do, but I want to explore these elusive creatures, and along the way get some photographs for my photography shop. It's been super rainy in the garden at the moment, which means it's less likely to see moths. Moths don't usually fly in the wetter weather because their wings get wet and waterlogged, which make it harder for them to fly. So they usually just tuck up, get cosy and wait for a dry spell, which is what I'm waiting for. Just goes to show how much the weather shapes what happens in the garden at night time. On night 1 it was very wet, which brought out lots of snails and slugs, but for the moths it was a whole different story. I had my lamp clamped under the conifers, and I read that moths gravitate towards illuminated fabric. But after a lot of waiting around, the only creatures that came to the lamp were a few tiny insects. It was clear that the rain keeps moths grounded. I stayed out there for a while staring at the glowing sheet, convincing myself something would show up. It didn't. Nature just sometimes says, not tonight. On day 2 I took a whole different approach. A makeshift moth trap. A box with egg cartons to give the moths somewhere to rest until morning. I used a plug timer so that the lamp was only on from 10:30 PM to 2:30 AM. This was when the moths would be most active. As the sun set and the lamp turned on, I crossed my fingers. The next morning, the suspense was killing me. Huh. What all those are? I don't know who these guys are. Yeah! We have one moth. Look at that! One moth might not sound like much, but when you've been staring at an empty bedsheet, finding this felt like a small victory. What a really cool moth! There's only one in there, but the one that is in there has got beautiful colorations. It's a really stunning moth. Let's find out which moth it is. So I've just had a look on the ID sheet and it looks like it is a gold triangle moth, scientifically known as Hypsopygia costalis. Now that I've taken photos of this guy just where he was on the egg carton, let's see if I can maybe move him around and position him a bit to get some more interesting compositions. So I found a garden gnome statue of stone, and I really like the texture of it, and the lichen that is across the surface of it is going to look really cool beside the moth. So that's my next composition. Let's see if I can get the moth onto the gnome. Oh! Off into the trees. I still got some great photos of the moth just on the egg carton though, so I'll be super excited to upload those and have a look. The gold triangle is a tiny little moth, barely 3 centimeters across, but it has the most striking yellow accents on its wings. It's beautiful how it folds itself into a neat little triangle shape when it rests, almost like origami. It's one of those moths you'd never notice unless you stopped and looked closely. That's what I love about this. On day 3, after having done plenty of research, I was back with the trusty bedsheet, but this time I was using a bait. A homemade mix of sugar, water, old fruit and yeast. It smells a bit like beer and moths absolutely love it. I poured the warm mixture onto the bedsheet, switched on 2 bright lamps and waited. We're already getting our first few visitors. Finally it worked. Within an hour the area came alive with moths. Some tiny, some a bit bigger, all drawn to the sweet smell. I stayed up quite late photographing them under the glow of the lamp, watching the patterns on their wings appear in the camera lens. On the morning of day 4, some of the moths were still clinging to the sheet in the cool morning air. Photographing them in daylight showed colours and details you just don't see at night. Every moth like a little piece of artwork. I managed to get this pretty moth onto some stone using a bit of leftover bait. It's amazing to watch its mouthpiece as it feeds on the sweet liquid. I then had the pleasure of uploading all of my photos, editing them and printing them on proper photographic paper. Here is how they turned out. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.